Alright, it's time to take a look at the Ottawa Senators prospect pipeline here at Scouching. And before we do this, I do want to go through what we're doing. We're going to take all of their prospects, group them into rough tiers, and just take a bird's eye look into how things look going into a new season. But before we do, I need to explain what a prospect is in my definition, and what these tiers actually mean. So, a prospect in my definition is a player within 5 years of their first year of draft eligibility, and they haven't played a full season with an NHL roster. In terms of the tiers, we have a franchise-level player who is elite, top-end NHL quality. You never let them go. The Mike Modano in Dallas, for example. Then you have your core players who are surrounding those types of players, but may not quite have the same sort of superstar-level quality, but they are very important to your franchise and you really don't want to have to live without them. Then you have your depth players, which round out the roster. They play on your second, third, or fourth line and just fill things out. You like having them around and they perform a variety of roles. Then you have your maybes category, which are players that are a bit more of a long shot, but might have something in the stable there that they might be able to work on and work their way into the NHL with. Be it high potential and maybe a low floor, or a decent floor, but maybe not quite enough to break into a bottom six role. And then you have everyone else, who is mostly older players that don't look like they're tracking for the NHL, or players that are a bit of a long shot statistically as they are now. With the Ottawa Senators, we're going to start with the depth category, and for me there are two players in this group for them, Mads Søgaard and Carter Yakimchuk. Carter Yakimchuk to me was a reach at 7th overall, but I can see the appeal. He's got interesting offensive tools. He's got interesting physical tools. He has a desire to play physically, which you definitely need in the NHL. And I think there's a good possibility that he becomes a solid middle pair offensive defenseman that has a bit of physicality in his game, that has his ups and downs, but you like having him on the roster. In terms of Mads Søgaard, his NHL time has been a little bit spotty. Whenever I've seen him in the AHL, he's looked really solid and strong in net, and we'll see what happens with him. I see a path forward for Mads Søgaard if a job becomes available in Ottawa someday. Down in the maybes, I think Ottawa has added some interesting names down here. They just added Xavier Bourgault from the Edmonton Oilers, who has had his ups and downs in the AHL himself, but a fresh start might do well for him. He's always been a pretty smart offensive playmaking guy on the forward side of the game, and he's always been a bit of a long shot to me, but there is enough there that maybe something will happen. The defensemen in here are really interesting to me in Theo Wahlberg, Philip Nordberg, Hoyt Stanley, Tyler Klevin, and Blake Montgomery. These are all guys that have strong frames, they're all big physical guys, but some of them actually have more understated skill than you might think. Philip Nordberg and Theo Wahlberg and Hoyt Stanley especially are guys that can really play with the puck, and I think over the long term, you might end up with something really interesting here if you are patient. You might look at Hoyt Stanley's production and be a little bit questioning, but I feel like he had a pretty decent freshman season, and I think over the long term, you could end up with an interesting player there. Tyler Klevin may very well be in the NHL this year, which would automatically earn him a promotion. I was watching a bit of him last night in preparation of making this video, and I still feel like Klevin is a player that might have some struggles in the NHL in terms of an overall 200-foot impact, but has the physical tools and a pretty decent shot on him that might earn him a job down the lineup long term. He's probably the guy riding the line of depth and maybe the most out of this group. And the last guy in here is Zach Ostapchuk. Again, a pretty decent up and down the ice type player who plays with enough physicality and speed and skill where there could be a chance he's an NHL player every day. He's been an NHL player once in a while for the Senators last year, but we'll see what happens as the Ottawa Senators improve and work their way up the standings if he is actually going to be a long-term solution for the team. It's possible, I'm not saying it's not, he's just a player I've been a little cooler on, and I feel like he still has a bit of a ways to go to find an everyday NHL role, but there is some interesting tools there. Then you have everyone else, and the Ottawa Senators have drafted a lot in recent years, and to be frank, I haven't been a huge fan of a lot of the guys they've drafted. We'll see what happens with a goaltender like Leevi Merilainen, who's been decent with Belleville, but in terms of the other players they've added, I wasn't huge on the Gabe Eliasson pick this year. I feel like Javon Moore still has quite a ways to go to become an NHL power forward. Guys like Eric Wallenius are interesting to me, but again, I feel like they have a long way to go. I've got Tyler Boucher down here because it's just been a while and I just haven't seen the consistency and the ability to stay healthy in Tyler Boucher that gives me a whole lot of confidence. I've always kind of liked Tyler Boucher. It's just the fact that he was drafted 10th overall I think has really colored people's analysis of him. and now that he just can't stay healthy, it's been a struggle. We'll see what happens with the Ottawa Senators under a new ownership regime, a new management regime, a new scouting regime. Everything is new in Ottawa, which is very exciting. I wasn't a huge fan of the Yakimchuk pick. I wasn't a huge fan of the Eliasson pick. But, as always, I'm happy to be proven wrong, and I could see those players being something in the NHL. How impactful they'll be remains to be seen, but I do think the Ottawa Senators have a couple of interesting players in here that you could look forward to in the NHL. So that's it for the Ottawa Senators report. If you liked it, you can like and subscribe, and if you really liked it, you can go to Scouching.ca, where a subscription will get you exclusive access to written content, as well as plenty of cool data tables for drafted and undrafted prospects, a Discord server, and other cool stuff you can check out there. So check out Scouching.ca and consider subscribing. And with that, we're done with the Ottawa Senators, and up next, we're going to be taking a look at the Dallas Stars.